it's Mandy from Northern Gypsy Living. I decided that I'm starting this video whether I feel like I'm ready or not, and whether it's perfect or not. If I don't start it, I'm never going to start. So if you remember me, I had a YouTube channel like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, called Mandy Jean Chic, and it was all about my life in New Mexico, my business, my marriage, the whole 9 yards. So a lot's changed. That's something that I'll get into in future videos and things. The biggest change is the fact that last year my husband passed away. He was dealing with PTSD and he actually took his own life. Last year has been a total year of change, growth, healing, grieving, so many things this last year for me. But saying that, so many wonderful things too. I'm back to living in my beautiful historic building, and it's still my dream. And I have a wonderful partner. He is awesome. We've been together about a year now. I wasn't planning on dating so soon after losing Brett. I wasn't planning on dating anybody, but he's just as big of a nerd as I am. And if you've ever loved somebody who's grieving, that's a special kind of love. And he allows me grace and is absolutely wonderful. So yeah, so much has changed in my life, but I've been wanting to film this. I've been wanting to get back to starting Northern Gypsy Living for like the last month, but I just never felt like anything was perfect enough. And it's now the 31st of July, and I want to do my August TBR, and I'm doing it whether if I believe it's perfect or not, because I have to start somewhere. One of the things that really brings me a lot of joy, and if you followed me on my other businesses and social media before this, was I was a big reader. I love to read, and I still love to read. This last year, probably a year and a half, reading probably saved a lot of my mental health, because I was able to disconnect and listen to those stories and engage in those stories. So bringing this side to Northern Gypsy Living, the reading side and the literacy side, is extremely important because I have something extra cool that might be coming too. August is a special month for me. August is my birthday. It's my birthday month. So I always love kind of picking out special books to read this month. Or I do, like, I start the summer, and I did, like, when I turned 40, I did like 40 books before I turned 40 and all of that. This year, I've been just kind of reading as what I like to read. So I'm actually planning a TBR for this month. One thing I've been doing a lot has been working in this library, and I'll do a library tour kind of when we get it just a teeny bit more done. But I have quite a few books. I have quite a few books on my TBR. So I was like, you know what? I'm actually going to plan this month of August and maybe do a couple of fun things. Well, I'm going to pick 20 books. I'm not going to say my goal is to read 20 books because that's quite a bit. However, I do have the blessing of being a stay-at-home dog mom. So I no longer work for the foundation. You know, my life is basically about me, about Brandon, and about my dogs. And so I have a little bit more reading time than I used to. So I probably can get through 20 books, but I don't want to put that kind of pressure on myself right now. So I'm going to pick 20 books. 5 of those books are going to be books that I want to read this month that I choose. 5 books are going to be new releases. I subscribe to 3 different book boxes. Book of the Month, Aardvark, and Allurial? I think that's the name of it. It's kind of a romantic-y one. Yeah, I'm in that era right now in my life. Never thought I'd be there. I was always like, people must die in my books, right? Like, I love thrillers and true crime and horror. I'm a big horror girl. But now I'm like, well, a little romantic ain't that bad. So I'm going to pick 5 new releases this month. And then I took a bunch of like random like reading prompts offline and kind of put them into a spinny wheel. So we're going to do that. We're going to pick 5 books off the spinny wheel and kind of do like a little scavenger hunt. And then I also use LibBib to keep track of my library because your girl was buying a lot of duplicate books. And I needed something to track those, so I started using LibBib, which I really like. And out of that, I exported that spreadsheet, put it in a spinny wheel, and we're going to pick 5 random books. So I have 5 books that I want to read this month. So the first book that I want to read is called Make Nice, and this is one that I intend to read on Mackinac Island. So I might maybe in August be taking a trip to Mackinac City and Mackinac Island. If I don't, I'll probably save this and read that on that trip. This says 3 generations of a family, a snail scientist, a hapless con man, soon-to-be divorcee, her teenage daughter, and their freckless patriarch descend on a ritzy Lake Michigan vacation island in this irresistible comedy of manners. So I thought, and again, I won this in a giveaway, so I really didn't know too much about it. I just love the idea that it was on Mackinac Island, so I thought it'd be fun to maybe do that and make a little trip out of it. The next book that I want to read this month, and this is so funny, I knew nothing about this series at all, but I found books 2 and 3 at Schuler's on like a major discount, and I bought them because they were pretty. And I actually read the synopsis of them after I bought them. And I was like, wow, that actually sounds kind of interesting. So I found this one on eBay, and it's a Fairy Loot edition. It's called The Coven by Harper Woods. I believe it's been a popular book. But it says, for those who love them villainous. And it's a dark romance. And it came with like some of like the Fairy Loot stuff, which I thought was really cool. I didn't know it was coming with that. This is a dark romance, and it says, your destination is not to do what is right. Your destination is to destroy us all. Willow Madzia never thought she'd accept a plate at Hollow Grove University, a secret and prestigious institution where the best and brightest of her fellow witches learn to wield their magic. I want to read this month because I think it'd be kind of a cool dark academia, dark romance. If it's not, it's really pretty. So this is one that I bought in July, and I never got around to reading it in July. It's Slasher Summer, and this is a fun, twisty tribute to cult films of the 80s. Slasher Summer shows that the real horror is never being able to escape who you were in high school. I really like it. Had sprayed edges on it, which I'm such a sucker for. I think I got this at Barnes & Noble. But this looks like a VCR, so I want to try to read this one this month. This book is hysterical because I was sitting in Schuler's. I lost Brandon in Schuler's, so I was sitting on the bench, and I just looked down and I saw the spine of it, and I'm like, and I was in the fiction section, and I'm in the general fiction section, and I'm like, Cabre. So I picked it up, and I'm like, it has art on the cover. Like, I like art. So I started looking at it, and it says a picture is worth 1,000 nightmares. I'm like, well, this ain't supposed to be in this section. Turn over the cover jacket. It has a duplicate cover, and it's one that you can color, which I think is really cool. Kind of neat. But it says, from award-winning and USA Today bestselling author Kosoko Jackson comes his adult fantasy debut, a standalone novel blending art history, time and global hopping adventure, and dark horror and fantasy about 10 cursed paintings and the lengths people will go to collect them, destroy them, or be destroyed. I was like, in the basket, this will go. So the last one that I for sure want to read this month is House of Splinters. I really loved the Silent Companions. When I started reading it, I didn't like it. I was like, I don't know if this is for me, and then I got into it, and it was such a good book. I didn't even know that there was like a sequel/prequel to it. So when I was doing my review, it came up on Goodreads, and I'm like, I have to have that. So I drove an hour and 45 minutes to get this book that I have not read in 3 weeks. I thought I was going to read it that day. So I'm going to read it this month. Probably going to be the first book I read this month. This House of Splinters is a long-awaited prequel to best-selling and multi-award-winning author Laura Purcell's Gothic horror classic, The Silent Companions. If you love the Gothic, which I love the Gothic's like probably my favorite genre. I loved the Gothic before the Gothic was kind of cool. I've studied the Gothic. That was actually one of the things I studied when I was in college, was Gothic literature. This is probably one of my favorite authors that actually does Gothic in a way that gives you those Gothic feels without having to really deep dive into what the Gothic is. A prime example is Mexican Gothic. Mexican Gothic was a book that I read before I had a real clear understanding of what the Gothic is, and I hated it. It was like a 1-star read. I hated Mexican Gothic. That was one of the worst books I've ever read. Well, for this class, one of the classes I was taking, I had to read it again, and I was like, I don't want to read it. Well, I read it, and when we read it, like I got a significant better understanding of what the Gothic actually is, and then it was like a 5-star read for me. I loved it. So I feel like Laura Purcell does a really good job for people who are newer maybe to that genre of the Gothic, that you get all those feels that you want. You get that creep factor, you get like the creepy house, you get, all these things. and her books kind of invite you to explore more. If that makes sense. So this is going to be a 5-star. I just know it is. It's going to be a 5-star prediction. So for new releases this month, I have The Unknown by Riley Sager. Of course, like I'm going to go on Tuesday, get the book at Barnes & Noble, even though I did order it as one of my add-ons for Book of the Month, just in case it came before the Barnes & Noble one did. So, or before the Barnes & Noble release. So, I don't know, I might end up having 2 copies with it. But anytime I get 2 copies of a book, I actually donate the second copy to a free little library. I'm so much of an advocate for free little libraries. I love them. So that was my intention, is if I end up liking the Barnes & Noble Deluxe Edition better than the Book of the Month, I'll just donate the Book of the Month. But if that meant I could read the book a day earlier, then that's what I was going to do. And if I had to pay $11.99 to do it, I was going to pay $11.99 to do it. So I did it. Another new release that I actually got this past Tuesday is called Blood Slaves by Marcus Redmond. And this is one that, again, like I've always been into like vampires and thrillers and horrors and the Gothic and kind of that vibe. So when I saw this one, I love Southern Gothic when it's done right. I feel like Southern Gothic can sometimes get a little cheesy. So I'm very careful on what I read with like this Southern Gothic. And this is a vampire origin story, brilliantly reimagined in this terrifying novel of ancient lore, startling revenge, and immortal emancipation in the 18th century America. I always like when books have a nod to history that's accurate, especially when there's maybe a message involved, and then add ghosts and Gothic vibes and sign me up. So definitely one I want to read this month, and it had really cool sprayed edges. For the past, I'm 42. I'll be 43 in August. For the past 42 years, sprayed edges had never mattered to me. This last year, sprayed edges matter. I don't know why. I like how they look in the library. I love sprayed edges. So the next book that I want to read this month that is new is City of Widows. And this was one that when I was kind of looking at the new releases that were coming out on Tuesday, I almost skimmed over this because being a widow, I don't like reading that kind of stuff. It's still kind of fresh to me. And like I have a really hard time reading like books that involve suicide. Like I loved Marcus Clywer's We Used to Live Here. It was probably one of my favorite books ever. I've not read The Caretaker because I read the trigger warnings on it, and the warnings on it, and I'm like, you know what? I can't do the suicide thing right now. So I have plans to read it eventually. It's just not going to happen probably anytime soon. So when I saw this book, I like almost kind of skimmed over it, and then I actually read the synopsis on it, and I'm like, this sounds really awesome. And it's by Nadia Hashimi. Man, I am not good at the names. I'm so sorry. But what it says is, from the best-selling author of The Girl That Broke Its Shell comes a gripping, compulsive, readable, and ultimately hopeful novel about the women of today's Afghanistan. It says, on February 2020, the United States began to withdraw troops from Afghanistan after nearly 20 years of occupation. A whole generation of Afghan women had been born during this time. In the bustling cosmopolitan city of Kabul, women were TV newscasters, shop owners, doctors, teachers, lawyers, and even soldiers. They knew everything was about to change when the Taliban filled the streets again. And I thought this was just really gripping to me because, you know, I was in high school on September 11th, 2001. I was actually a senior. And I lost people that I went to high school with in the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. They were killed. And I have my own opinions on things and stuff. However, you know, when we withdrew and things, I don't know. I was just kind of at a weird point in my life with like the pandemic and everything that just I didn't spend the time to actually be like aware, if that makes sense. Now I have 2 more possibilities that are going to be open for new releases that I don't have technically filled, because I did do my book of the month and I did do my Allurial, but I'm still waiting on Aardvark to update for the month of August. So I do have 2 spots available for that. So I put in all of the books in my library into this spinny wheel, and we're going to select 5 at random to read in the month of August as possibilities. Again, there might be some that are Brandon's or some that are like cookbooks or some that I've already read. So then in that event, we'll just spin again. First book is Sharp Objects. That is by Gillian Flynn, isn't it? And this is one I actually got used. I've had it probably for like 4 years. It says, to say this is a terrific debut novel is really too mild. I found myself doing, okay, that's Stephen King. Fresh from a brief stay at a psych hospital, reporter Camille Preaker faces a troubling assignment. She must return to her tiny hometown to cover the murders of 2 preteen girls. Which is interesting. I know a lot of people really like Gillian Flynn, so I'm here for it. I'll try it. Okay. This Side of Paradise. I don't know what that is. I gotta look that up in my library. That one might be one of Brandon's. Okay, so this is actually one of Brandon's books. It's called This Side of Paradise by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This Side of Paradise is about the education of a youth, and to this universal story, Fitzgerald brought the promise of everything that was new to the vigorous, restless America during the years following World War I. Okay, maybe interesting. I do like history after World War I because I feel like so much changed because it was such a horrific war. And even from a mental point of view, I mean, you have shell shock, and people were like, "Oh, they just have shell shock." When truthfully, that was like the beginnings of PTSD. One of my favorite books I've ever read is called The Facemaker by Lindsay Fitzgerald. If you enjoy kind of the history of medicine and things, read The Facemaker. So good. The third one is The Novelist from Berlin. I'm getting quite a bit of like historical fiction. I have to get my ladder to get that. It's like way up top. So I'm just going to show you guys my my libbib of it on the screen. So it's an engrossing novel inspired by the mysterious true story of Irmgard Kuhn, a female novelist who defied the rules during Berlin's volcanic post-World War II years. As a young German writer exiled for her ideas, leaves her country and her Nazi-supporting husband fighting her art, her love, and her child. Fighting for her art, her love, and her child. Excuse me, so it's a historical fiction. Fourth one is Sound and the Fury. Okay, so this is another one of Brandon's books. The wheel apparently really likes Brandon today. And it is The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner. So this is another classic. The tragedy of the Compson family features some of the most memorable characters in literature. Beautiful, rebellious Caddy, the man-child Benji, haunted, neurotic Quentin, Jason, the brutal cynic, and Dilsey, their black servant. Their lives fragmented and harrowed by history and legacy. The characters' voice and actions mesh to create what is arguably Faulkner's masterpiece and one of the greatest novels of the 20th century. Okay, I'm game. If it picks another author with the last name starting with F, I'm going to wonder. Oh, I just got this. Courting of Bristol Keats. I literally just got this, and I almost put it as a book that I wanted to read this month that I got to pick. But I saw the size of it, and I got a little nervous. So this is one that I actually bought the second book in this series at Schuler's. Super discounted because it was really pretty. There's a pattern there. And I realized I had to get book 1. So I was searching on eBay, and I found this one. It's Fairy Loot edition, too. So it has, like, the really cool sprayed edges. And it's called The Courting of Bristol Keats by Mary E. Pearson. And it says, never make a deal with the Fae. After losing both their parents, Bristol Keats and her sister struggle to stay afloat in their small, quiet town of Bowskeep. When Bristol begins to receive letters from an aunt she's never heard of, who promises to help, she discovers that everything she thought she knew about her family was a lie. Her father might even still be alive, kidnapped by terrifying creatures from another realm. And P.S. the Fairy Loot edition is so beautiful. I'm excited to read this one. I don't think this is the only fantasy one I have, right? Yeah. Classics and thrillers and historical fiction. So the next part of the section is doing kind of like a little bit of a scavenger hunt on my bookshelf. And I picked out, I think it was like 300 and something reading prompts. Yeah. Online, and I put them into a spinning wheel. So I figured we'd pick 5 and kind of go from there and see if we can find 5 books to add to the TBR for August, because then that would give us 20. Okay, coming of age story. I'm gonna go to LibBib, and one of the cool things that I have done in LibBib is I created filters, and in all of these filters, like I've done them, like the stars that I've rated. It's not all done yet, but I do have a little one for coming of age. Maybe that'll help me kind of narrow down a little bit. Great Expectations by Charles Dickens might be nice. Dorothy Must Die by Danielle Page. Oh yeah, this was a used one that I got in Owasso at Fable Lane. So they didn't ask for any of this. I didn't ask to be some kind of hero. Chlorine, I've already read. Lincoln Highway, I don't really want to, I don't, Nothing to See Here. Okay, I think I want to do this one so far. Black Cake. Ooh, The Truants. That has literally been on my TBR forever. That's another kind of dark academia one. Thrilling demeanor, for lovers of advocacy and secret history. Let's do The Truants. I want to do The Truants. That's on my bookshelf over there that I can't get to right at the second. A science fiction novel. Okay, so let's use LibBib and look up some science fiction ones that we have. It just makes my life easier doing it this way, because I kind of have a little bit of my library blocked off right now. Okay, Illuminate, not right now. Not in the mood for those ones. Okay, Nightfall. That one sounds kind of interesting. Horror meets post-apocalyptic thriller. Cabin at the End of the World. Ultimate Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Ooh! Dead but Dreaming Electric Sheep. I think I'm going to do the Paul Tremblay, Dead but Dreaming of Electric Sheep, because I just got that through Aardvark last month, and I didn't read it, and it sounded really interesting, and it's a brand new Paul Tremblay, and I really like his writing. So that is actually on the bookshelf that I can't get to right now without moving my tripod and everything. A quick read under 150 pages. Okay, I got it. Technically is over 150 pages, but it's like the size of my hand. It's called An Elderly Lady Must Not Be Crossed. And I read the first one of the series and I loved it and I thought it was hysterical. It's a bunch of short stories about this elderly woman. And it says, don't let her age fool you. Maud may be nearly 90, but if you cross her, this elderly lady is more sinister than sweet. I actually, when I was redoing my library, I found this one again and I was like, I want to read this one. So we'll do this one. Okay, one more. A book that became a movie. Okay, so Jaws. I actually got this at Fable Lane in Owasso, and I wanted to read it because I love Jaws. So this would be kind of a cool, like, end of summer read, because I've decided that my birthday is August 15th. So I decided August 16th is the start of fall in Mandyland. I would love to hear what's on your guys' TBR. I would love to hear what you want to read this month. If you've read any of these, if you've liked them, if you disliked them, like your thoughts, I would love to hear what you think. I'll include a link below to my blog and to my Goodreads if you want to be a Goodread friend, and my Instagram. I haven't started doing a lot of TikToks yet, but we'll get there. So thank you guys so much for spending some time with me. and I hope to film more book content here soon.